What do you got, Charlie?
Yeah,
So I got a little bit of a different article. I've always, grown up, always heard of this Bloomberg fellow, but didn't really know much about him. And I've found an article that talks about how he became rich. And it turned out to be pretty interesting that there was basically what happened was he used to be a banker at Solomon Bank, and he was pretty high up or Solomon Brothers actually is what it should be called. And he was pretty high up there and ended up eventually leaving and got this $10 million severance package and used that to create this thing called the Bloomberg Terminal that was essentially it was a lot of things, but it was basically a system where people could discuss, they could get stock quotes, they could go on there, it was like a text interface, and they could go on there and enter, they could find out where oil tankers were around the world or where wildfires were, or other things that they felt had some impact on the stock market. And it became this insider tool where you could pay like $24,000 a year to be subscribed to this service, and then within it you could go find all these things. But then it started to become a lot of other things. It started to have, like, they would have chat rooms, they would have like a Friday quiz, they would have all these different things, and it was really popular. It was the way that a lot of Wall Street basically ran back in the 80s, and it started as long ago as 1981, and it's still in existence today, and you just don't hear about it. Like, I had never heard about this at all.
I mean, I've heard of Bloomberg News, but not like the inside. Like, how much was it a year? You said
it was 20 to 24,000, and then it depends. So it's like 24,000 for the first license, and then if two people sign up in your organization, it's 20,000 for each license after that. And it said, I don't know if I believe this, but it was a Vox article, but it said that Bloomberg brought in about $10 billion in revenue in 2018, and they estimated that 3/4 of that is still terminal-based revenue. And so I'm not sure if I'm taking that out of context or misunderstanding it, but it says it has up to 325,000 subscribers currently. But what I got a kick out of was that these like chat rooms are all like anonymous, and you get all these people who are there, who are presumably there to discuss financial news, but it often devolves, I guess, according to the article, into like discussions on weightlifting or like saying negative things about presidential candidates and like all these different things. And it's just like goes to show you the way that the internet, like even when you take the internet and limit it down to people who are focused in the stock market and seemingly professionals, like anonymity still creates this cesspool where everybody is just doing whatever they want to do in this thing. And so I guess my first thing is, have you guys ever heard of this? Am I the only one that did not know that there was a Bloomberg Terminal?
I did not know there was a Bloomberg Terminal. Yeah. I mean, I knew we used Bloomberg News as our internal research service. So one of the services they have, which is quite expensive, is for accountants and lawyers, where they provide accounting and tax research materials. And so if we want to look up any particular tax or accounting issue, we use that Bloomberg service. And so, I mean, that's the product that I most directly use from them. I, of course, knew there was Bloomberg News. That's more general. Yeah, I mean, I assumed that there was something that got them started, but I had no idea.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense, because it's why you also don't hear about like all these different, there aren't as many popular sites where people can go and discuss these types of things, because that was the answer to it. And it's just a very focused group of people who are using it, and so it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I find it amazing. When was the latest figures you said you had that Vox had?
I think it was as early as 2018, or as recent as 2018.
And you're saying 85% of?
It's 75%.
75%.
Yeah. Three-quarters of their $10 billion in revenue is still terminal based, according to the article. Now,
I'm just amazed that in the age of like free information. I mean, I just changed my headlight this morning. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Like, and it's a special headlight. I was able to find a video of it, like 20 seconds of looking on the internet. I'm just surprised in the age of this kind of information and aggregation of things that there's not an alternative product to this that's selling for like 10 grand. That this thing is still chugging along in 2019, almost 2020 at that kind of subscription rate.
Yeah.
For Wall Street bros like that, it seems like, wow, like maybe we're in the wrong business.
Well, I think it's the curation and reputation that goes behind the information. as well as I think with industry specific services like this, there is still, I know this from, we were just talking about the service that we use that is on the accounting and tax side. Some of the detailed editorial analysis and information that we get out of that, you actually can't just get that by Googling or YouTubing.
Right.
And I think the same thing to your point. It's like, it's phenomenal with all the free information that's out there that there still is an information set or a data set that in order to really get the real stuff, you have to actually pay
Right.
to get access to that, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is kind of out there, but it's hidden or it's very widely dispersed, and it would take a lot of time for you to bring it together and to trust the sources that you're bringing it together from.
I think that's a huge part.
Yeah. So it's just a lot more efficient in business to be like, I pay this really expensive fee, but I know that I can go in and get my answer right away.
Well,
Right.
and like you have the chat rooms, and at least when if you go into something like that, you have limited yourself to where, okay, I'm going to have discussions to people I'm going to have discussions with people who are already paying $24,000 a year to be on this. And so even though that cost may not seem justified, but just limiting yourself to that group to get your feedback from is something that's difficult to replicate with any kind of free, tool, assuming that there's anything meaningful inside it going on in those chat rooms. I don't personally know. I don't go there, but,
Well, and the other piece of that, I mean, that part of it is very much like old-fashioned social clubs, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right, you
old
pay-
boys club.
Yeah. You pay your membership fee to have access to the network and to be able to go to the clubhouse and to go to the club events and to rub elbows with the right people, right? And so perhaps there's some of that going on as part of the value proposition here.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you how information has always been even with the availability of the internet, information has still just continued to be such a huge commodity and resource.
Yeah.
I wonder, I remember when Trump was getting elected, one of the things that they were saying is his conflict of interest because he had so many businesses in so many different sectors, a lot of like hospitality, and how that was a problem and supposedly was supposed to relinquish. Bloomberg's running for president. I wonder if there would be, because he is so tied to the stock market, if there would be some kind of like conflict of interest
And news.
in the news.
Yeah,
the
his
news
ties to the
part,
news.
yeah.
I think I did see something about how there'd been some kind of directive that his news outlets could not cover him or something like that.
Huh.
So they were trying to do something to kind of deal
Internally, like
yeah,
you think? Yeah,
yeah,
he's
they were-
basically saying.
Yeah, they had announced it or whatever, but it was something they were trying to do to try to deal with the both real and perceived conflicts of interest. But I mean, I don't know how you get around that. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you're that their media is going to have some effect on some people who are voters, and so I don't think he's going to be able to escape that taint.
Sure.
That's going to be an issue for him if he's debating others in the field.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the only other thing I wanted to add is that there's a section of the article talking about why it didn't have major competition. And one of the things that brought up that was interesting was that it said that one of the ways they did it was they made the system somewhat hard to use so that once people had taken the time to learn it, that they no longer felt like they wanted to go ahead and put that much effort into learning some other new system. And so by having this like barrier to entry where people have to learn all these codes and all these like commands, that then makes them, loyal to the system because they don't want to restart that whole nightmare.
You already know the secret handshake for this one.
Exactly. So that's the takeaway.
Kind of like why I never have an iPhone, right? They lock you into that ecosystem,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right? They, Google or Apple, like, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to change. I don't want to download iTunes.
Yeah.
Like I already have Google Music. I don't know.
Yeah.
already
No.
learned how to
That
use
is
it.
that. My wife is iPhone and I'm Android, and
A house divided.
Yeah, it's a house divided, and it means that I never get into her phone because it's too confusing for me. I don't want to mess with it.
You just yell, there's one button. I don't know how to use this one. Everybody's in the asking voice.
Yes. Yeah.
That's every time I pick up an iPhone. I'm like, I just don't know how to use this thing.
Right.
I am an Android peasant.